A fiery showdown unfolds as a fearless veteran boldly calls Trump a traitor. On live TV, what happens next turns into a no-holds-barred battle of words that no one saw coming. The stage was ablaze with tension. Bright studio lights beamed down on the packed town hall, illuminating the two figures at its center: Donald Trump, seated comfortably in his signature navy blue suit and red tie, and across from him, John Miller, a decorated U.S. Marine veteran whose jaw clenched with fury and disappointment. The audience, a mixture of patriotic Americans and skeptical liberals, sat on the edge of their seats, breaths held, eyes locked on what was about to unfold. Trump had faced countless adversaries before: journalists, politicians, corporate elites. But tonight felt different. Tonight, his opponent wasn't a career politician or a media figure. It was a man who had seen war, who had bled for the stars and stripes, who once believed in the promises made to him by his commander-in-chief. And that man wasn't here to exchange pleasantries. The moderator handed Miller the microphone, and he grasped it tightly, as if holding a rifle. His voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Mr. Trump," he began, sharp and steady, "I wore this uniform for 22 years. I fought for America. Not for Democrats, not for Republicans, for the America we were promised. The America you claimed you'd fight for." The audience tensed. Some nodded, others scowled. Trump, ever composed, leaned back with a smirk, arms folded, as if already victorious. Miller's voice rose, anger bubbling beneath every word. "You ran on America first. You promised to bring back jobs, to end these endless wars, to stand up for veterans. But what did you do?" Trump arched an eyebrow. "Here it comes," he muttered under his breath. "You handed billions to defense contractors, the same ones you said were robbing us blind. You increased military spending while soldiers like me came home broken, struggling to find work, drowning in medical bills." The room exploded. Cheers of agreement clashed with boos. One man shouted, "Traitor." Another yelled, "He's right." But Miller wasn't finished. He stepped closer. "And now you talk about border security." His voice cracked with disbelief. "You promised to go after criminals, but you're tearing families apart, deporting hardworking immigrants who built this country." He paused, letting the accusation hang. "That's not America first. That's America last." A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. Trump's face remained unreadable as he leaned forward, elbows on the table. His tone was casual, almost amused. "Are you done?" Miller's fist clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. "No, Mr. President," he shot back. "I'm just getting started." The room caught fire. Shouts echoed, some rally for Trump, others for Miller. Cameras flashed. Social media feeds flooded with live streams and reactions. This wasn't a debate anymore. It was a battlefield. "You want to compare illegal immigration to someone breaking into my house?" Miller spat, his voice shaking. "That's the cheap, oversimplified garbage you feed your base so they won't think for themselves." Gasps, laughter, jeers. Trump's smirk widened. "Oh, they think for themselves," he replied smoothly. "And you know what they see? Jobs, safety, an economy that works. They see a president who fought for them, not like your pals in Washington, who sold them out." That hit a nerve. Miller's hand slammed the table. "Fought for them." His voice boomed. "You fought for yourself. You sat in your golden tower while guys like me bled in the sand." His voice cracked, the personal pain breaking through. "You let the war machine chew us up, and now you parade around like a hero." The audience stirred. Some shifted uncomfortably. Others nodded in solemn agreement. Trump's gaze sharpened. His voice dropped to a razor's edge. "Tell me, Colonel." He paused, letting the silence suffocate the room. "Which president sent you there?" Miller froze. His jaw tightened, words caught in his throat. The room went dead quiet. Quiet. Trump pressed on. "You weren't fighting my war," he said evenly. "You were fighting theirs." Everyone knew what that meant: the Bushes, the Clintons, the Obamas, decades of endless conflict. Miller swallowed hard. Memories of distant deserts, fallen comrades, and empty promises swirled in his mind. Trump leaned closer. "I didn't put you there," he said. "But I fought like hell to bring you back." Boom. The crowd erupted. Half the room jumped to their feet, cheering wildly. Others booed with equal ferocity. The noise was deafening, roaring applause clashing with outraged shouts. Cameras panned across tearful veterans, furious activists, and confused spectators. Miller's breathing quickened, his shoulders rising and falling. His fingers trembled against the microphone. For the first time that night, he had no words. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. Trump's words hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. I didn't put you there, but I fought like hell to bring you back. It wasn't just a statement. It was a dagger, strategic, precise. Miller felt the weight of it. Felt the audience shifting. Felt the millions watching from home recalibrating their thoughts. But he was a soldier. Soldiers don't retreat. Not without a fight. Miller took a deep breath, gaze locked on the man before him. You think you're some kind of savior? His voice was lower, now dangerous. You sit here acting like you fought for us. But I see a man who sold people a dream and gave them a nightmare. Gasps, cheers, boos. The battle raged on. And yet, amidst the chaos, Trump smiled. That same infuriating, calculated smirk. And in that smile, Miller saw the acknowledgement of a fight worth having, and a war far from over. The crowd held its breath as J. John Miller's voice cut through the thick tension. But let's talk about what really happened. He challenged, his gaze locked on Trump. For the first time that evening, Trump's expression shifted, barely noticeable, but enough. Miller saw it. He was hitting a nerve. His voice rose, echoing off the studio walls. You said you wanted to bring the troops home. You promised to drain the swamp. You vowed to fight the corruption that's been draining this country for decades. The audience stirred, some murmuring, others nodding. Trump leaned back, face unreadable. Miller pressed on. But the second you got into power, you surrounded yourself with the same war-hungry billionaires you swore you'd stand against. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Names followed like a hammer pounding on steel. John Bolton, Mike Pompeo, defense contractors making billions off the blood of soldiers like me. A wave of murmurs rolled through the audience. Some clapped in agreement. Others booed, loyal to Trump. But Miller wasn't done. He stepped closer, eyes burning. And let's talk about the border, Mr. President. Trump's expression remained calm, but his eyes flickered. Miller noticed he had Trump's attention. You parade around like you're protecting America, he scoffed. But tell me, when you separated families, when innocent kids were locked in detention centers, was that America first? The crowd exploded. Applause, boos, shouts, it was chaos. Trump exhaled slowly, fingers tapping the table, gaze steady. Not interrupting. Not yet. Miller leaned in, his voice dropping to steel. I fought for this country. Not for a flag, not for a party, for the people. And I won't stand here and let you pretend you fought for them too. Boom. His words struck like artillery. Trump's jaw tightened. The audience split in two, half standing, clapping, cheering. The other half shouting, traitor. Trump remained silent. The quiet between them stretched, suffocating. Miller felt the momentum shifting. For the first time, he thought, I'm winning this. But then, Trump smiled. A slow, calculated smirk. The room's energy twisted. Miller's stomach clenched. Trump leaned back, adjusting his tie, letting the silence stretch just enough to unnerve. You done? He asked, voice low, almost amused. Miller gritted his teeth. Not even close. Trump chuckled, a confident, deep sound that sent ripples through the audience. You're good, Colonel, he said, nodding. You've got the passion, the fire. But there's one little problem. He paused, letting the weight of the moment sink in. Miller tensed but didn't take the bait. The room seemed to hold its breath. You're talking like a soldier, Trump continued, voice calm, but you're thinking like a politician. Boom. The audience stirred again, gasps, murmurs, shifting, loyalty palpable. Miller's eyebrow twitched. Trump pressed on. You say I broke my promises? That I let the war machine keep running? That defense contractors got richer? He shook his head. No, Colonel. They kept it running. They fought me every step of the way when I tried to pull the troops out faster. His voice dropped, cold and sharp. You want someone to blame? Blame the real enemy. Miller narrowed his eyes. Oh, here we go, he scoffed. The deep state, right? Trump smirked. You're damn right. The crowd reacted instantly, applause from some, groans from others. Trump leaned forward. 22 years, Colonel, he said, locking eyes with him. How many times did you fight a war that Congress actually voted for? Miller's nostrils flared. Trump pressed, relentless. How many times did you watch billion-dollar defense deals get signed while you were bleeding for this country? Silence. Miller stiffened. He knew the answer. Trump's voice lowered to a near whisper. You think I was part of that club? He asked. No, Colonel. I was the only one who ever fought against it. The crowd leaned in, every pair of eyes locked on the stage. And about the border, Trump shifted gears smoothly. You talk about separating families? You know what tears families apart? He paused. Drug cartels, human traffickers, gangs. Miller opened his mouth, but Trump cut him off. I built that wall to protect American families, not to punish anyone, but to keep this country safe. A wave of applause erupted. Trump sat back, confidence radiating. So tell me, Colonel, he said smoothly, if I failed, why did every Democrat in Washington spend 4 years trying to stop me? Miller opened his mouth and closed it. No answer. The crowd sensed it. Trump sensed it. And Miller, he felt it. The tide was turning. Minutes ago, he'd had the upper hand. His words cut deep. His voice rallied the room. But now the audience wasn't just listening, they were questioning him, doubting. His jaw clenched, grip on the mic trembling. Then he snapped. You're full of it, Trump. His voice cracked like a gunshot. You didn't fight against anything. You played the same damn game as the rest of them. Gasps rippled through the room. Trump tilted his head, watching like a predator circling prey. You pretend to be the outsider. Miller continued, fists slamming the table, but you took money from the same people you swore you'd take down. His face burned red with fury. You don't give a damn about America. You care about power. That's all it's ever been. Cheers and boos clashed. Some clapped furiously, others yelled, sit down. Trump stayed perfectly still, letting him vent, letting him burn out. Miller's chest heaved. You talk about keeping families safe? His voice dripped with disdain. Tell that to the kids who lost their parents in your ICE raids, to the families you shattered. Another explosion of applause and protests. The crowd was on fire, divided, passionate, electric. Yet through it all, Trump remained unmoved. No flinch, no glare, no anger, just that infuriating calm. And then he laughed. Not loud, not mocking. A low, amused chuckle that cut through the noise worse than any insult. Miller's eyes widened, fists clenching tighter. Trump shook his head. There it is, he murmured. The room was a battlefield of sound, cheers, boos, shouts that bounced off every wall. Yet, in the eye of this storm, J. John Miller stood, chest heaving, fists clenched so tightly his knuckles gleamed white. His words had struck, but Trump hadn't flinched, hadn't blinked. Then, cutting through the chaos, came a sound that twisted the blade of tension further, a low, amused chuckle. Trump laughed. Not loudly, not mockingly, but calmly. That soft, measured laugh hit Miller harder than any shouted insult. His heart pounded. His eyes narrowed. There it is, Trump said, smirking as he leaned forward, elbows resting on the table. Miller stiffened. What the hell are you talking about? His voice cracked with tension. The moment you lose, Trump answered, voice smooth, each word sharp as a dagger. You're not debating anymore, Colonel. You're just yelling. The room quieted, drawn to his unwavering tone. You lost your temper, Trump added, tilting his head. And when you lose your temper, you lose the argument. Silence crashed down. Miller's breath hitched. Trump leaned back, his gaze steady, unflinching. You're a soldier, he said, voice low but carrying. You should know better than anyone the one who loses control, loses the war. The words landed like an artillery strike. Miller felt them. Hard. He'd faced enemy fire, survived ambushes where seconds meant life or death. But this was a different kind of battlefield. And right now he was losing. Cameras zoomed in, capturing every flicker of doubt. The audience knew it. Miller knew it. Damn it. But soldiers don't surrender. Miller's jaw tightened. He forced his fingers to unclench from the microphone, took a long breath, and steadied himself. If this was going down, he wasn't going quietly. You're right about one thing, Mr. President, he said, voice now low and controlled, steel behind every syllable. I am a soldier. I know what war looks like, and I know what losing looks like too. Trump's eyebrow arched, intrigued. And I'll tell you what I see when I look at you. Miller's voice hardened. I see a man who sold people a dream and gave them a nightmare. Boom. The crowd detonated cheers, boos, gasps colliding in a storm of noise. Some stood applauding. Others shouted insults. Miller's eyes never left Trump. You talk about fighting the swamp. His words punched through the chaos. You became the swamp. You said you'd stand up to the system, you fed it. Applause erupted from pockets of the crowd. Others shook their heads divided. Trump's face, unreadable. Like stone. You're good with words, Colonel Trump said at last, nodding slightly. But words don't change facts. Miller's breath quickened. Here's a fact for you, he snapped. Spin this however you want, call me weak. Say I lost my temper. Sit there with that smirk like this is just another TV show. But out there, his voice rose raw with emotion. Beyond this stage, beyond these cameras, there are real Americans still waiting for you to be the man you promised you'd be. A pause. The audience hung on the silence. And guess what? Miller's gaze burned. They're still waiting. Boom. The room exploded. Gasps. Shouts. Applause so fierce it rattled the stage. Others booed, fists shaking in protest. Trump's face still calm, but just there Miller saw it. A flicker. Not fear. Not anger. Something else. Did I land a hit? The thought flashed through his mind. The audience was chaos. Half stood cheering for Miller, chanting his name. Half screamed back, waving flags, shouting for Trump. It was electric. Frenzied. Alive. Cameras panned over the crowd, America divided in flesh and blood. And in the center of it all, Donald Trump sat unmoving. No anger, no frustration, just calm. Then he smiled, slow, measured, deadly. You done? Trump asked, voice dropping like a stone in a still pond. Miller's chest rose and fell, fists trembling. I've said what I came to say. Trump nodded, tapping his fingers together. Good, he said. Because now's now. It's my turn. The room hushed. Air thickened. Cameras zoomed in on Trump's face, capturing every inch of composure. He leaned forward, gaze locked onto Miller with the precision of a sniper. You call me a liar, he began, voice low. A sellout. Someone who became the very thing I swore to fight. He shook his head. Colonel, let me explain something to you. Silence stretched, tension coiled. I walked into Washington an outsider. Trump said. I wasn't supposed to win. Not against the media, the lobbyists, the entire corrupt establishment. His words pounded like a drumbeat. The swamp hated me from day one. They fought me every step of the way. They blocked every attempt I made to fix this country. A pause. And you know why? His gaze didn't waver. Because I wasn't one of them. Gasps echoed. Miller's jaw tightened. Trump leaned in closer. You talk about war like you're the only one who understands sacrifice, he said. I fought a different kind of war, Colonel, one you never saw. Not with bullets, but with power. And let me tell you something, his voice dropped to a near whisper. I won. The audience roared. Thunderous applause shook the floor. Miller clenched his fists, pulse pounding. You say I let America down, Trump continued, voice rising. Say I didn't fight hard enough. Fine. He leaned even closer, words slicing through the air. But let me ask you something, where were you when they tried to stop me? Miller's face darkened. Trump's gaze sharpened. Where were you when they sabotaged the wall? When they blocked every attempt I made to drain the swamp? When the media twisted my every word? The crowd buzzed, questions ricocheting in every direction. You want to blame me? Fine. Trump's voice dropped, cold and precise. But be honest. A beat. You weren't fighting against the problem, Colonel. His words struck like a hammer. You were helping it. Helping it. Boom. Miller's fist slammed the table, face red with fury. Trump didn't flinch. Didn't blink. He saw the crack and went for the kill. You say real Americans are waiting for me to be the man I promised. Trump paused. Guess what, Colonel? His voice cut like steel. They're still waiting for you too. Silence. Heavy. Crushing. Miller's mouth open, then closed. No comeback. No shot left. The audience erupted, half standing, roaring for Trump, chanting his name. Others booed, voices lost in the tidal wave of sound. Trump leaned back, smooth, adjusting his tie. Debate's over, he said. He stood. The crowd rose with him. Applause thundered. Some screamed in anger, others in triumph. Miller sat frozen, chest rising and falling, fists still clenched. But deep down, buried beneath pride and fire, he knew. Trump had won. Again. There are moments in life when we must stand up not for victory or recognition, but to defend the values and beliefs we hold dear. The confrontation between J. John Miller and Donald Trump was more than just a debate. It was a battle between emotion and reason, between anger and calm, between ideals and reality. Above all, it serves as a reminder of resilience, courage, and the power of inner strength. First lesson, controlling your emotions is a profound form of strength. While Miller, burdened by pain and disappointment, let his emotions take over, Trump, despite facing heavy criticism, remained composed. It's a reminder that when storms hit, those who stay calm are the ones who can see the path ahead. Sometimes victory isn't about who speaks louder, but about who listens, waits, and responds wisely. Second lesson, actions speak louder than words. You can say all the right things with passion and eloquence, but if your actions don't reflect those words, they become empty promises. Life doesn't remember unfulfilled promises, it remembers what you do, especially when you act quietly without seeking recognition. Let your actions define who you are. Words may travel far, but they can never surpass the lasting impression of meaningful deeds. Third lesson, winning or losing doesn't matter as much as preserving your dignity. Miller spoke up courageously, standing for the people he represented. Even if the outcome wasn't in his favor, his bravery was a moral victory, a triumph of standing for justice and truth. In life, you may lose a battle, but never lose yourself. Never sacrifice your compassion, honesty, or integrity, for those are values that endure far beyond a momentary result. Ultimately, the greatest lesson is this: true strength isn't always about speaking harshly or standing tall. It's found in staying calm during anger, being patient through adversity, and having the courage to face the truth. Remember, the real winner in life is the one who can look in the mirror and smile, knowing they lived a day with integrity and sincerity.